Before the world had edges, before kings built thrones from stone and blood, the gods walked among men. They were not kind, they were not merciful, they were ancient, and they were hungry. This is not a story for the faint of heart. This is a story that was buried, hidden from the history books, whispered only between grandmothers and their children on moonless nights. This is the legend of Anansi's darkest bargain. Welcome to Dark Whispers.
In the time before memory, deep in the forests of what is now Ghana, there existed a village called Nkrowa, a name that translates simply as the forgotten place. And forgotten it was. The rains had not come in 3 seasons. The rivers had pulled back like a wounded animal retreating into the dark. Children would teen, the elderly spoke only in prayers. The villagers had done everything the gods demanded. They had sacrificed, they had danced, they had burned their finest cloth and poured their sweetest palm wine into the cracked earth. But the sky remained silent. And in that silence, something else began to listen.
His name was whispered only in stories, never spoken aloud, never carved into wood or stone, for to give him a name was to invite him in. But we will call him by the name the old ones used behind closed doors: Sasabonsam, the vampire god of the forest, the one who fed not on blood, but on hope. Now you may know Anansi, the spider god of stories, the great trickster of West African legend. In the stories your grandmother told you, Anansi is clever, Anansi is funny, Anansi always wins. But those are the stories told in daylight. There are older stories, darker ones. Stories where Anansi's cleverness cut both ways, like a blade with no handle. Where his hunger for power led him to places even the bravest gods refused to go. On the night the village of Nkrowa burned its last fire, Anansi sat at the edge of the great forest. He had heard the prayers, he had felt the hunger. And unlike the other gods who looked away, Anansi smiled. Because Anansi knew something no one else did. He knew where Sasabonsam slept. And he knew that the vampire god had something extraordinary hidden in the dark hollow of a dying baobab tree. Something stolen from the sky itself at the beginning of time. A piece of the sun. Not the whole sun, just a piece, a fragment, a shard of pure golden fire, no bigger than a man's fist, but burning with the heat of 1,000 harvests. With that piece of sun, Anansi could end the drought. He could save Nkrowa. He could become something far greater than a trickster. He could become a hero. But to get it, he would have to make a bargain with the darkest creature in all of creation. Anansi entered the forest alone. No weapons, no charms, no protective prayers, just his wit. The darkness thickened around him like cloth being woven by invisible hands. The sounds of the night, the crickets, the owls, the rustling leaves, all fell silent one by one until there was nothing left but Anansi's own heartbeat. And then a voice, low, slow, like wood rotting from the inside. Little spider, you are far from your web. Anansi did not flinch. And you, said Anansi, are far from your reputation. I expected something terrifying, but you are just a shadow pretending to have teeth. A long silence. Then laughter, deep and wrong, like thunder coming from underground. Sasabonsam descended from the canopy above, his body impossibly long, his eyes burning like embers in a dying fire, his feet facing backwards, as all the legends described. You have come for the sun fragment, Sasabonsam said. I have come to make you a trade, Anansi replied. I have everything I desire, Spider. What could you possibly offer me? Anansi was quiet for a moment. Then he said 7 words that would change the fate of the village forever. I will give you a story, the last one. You see, even gods hunger for things beyond food. Sasabonsam had lived since before time had a name. He had fed on the hope of thousands. But stories were the one thing he could never create. He could destroy, he could corrupt, but he could not create. And Anansi was the god of stories. Every story ever told, Anansi said, has my thread running through it. I am in every tale, every legend, every whisper around every fire, since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered. When I die, stories die with me. No more legends, no more myths, no more gods remembered by men, including you. Give me the sun fragment, Anansi continued, and I will weave you into the greatest story ever told. Sasabonsam, feared across all of creation, remembered forever. Or refuse me, and when I am gone, you will fade with me, forgotten, like you never existed. What happened next, the old ones say, lasted 3 days. Anansi and Sasabonsam bargained in the dark forest, while the village of Unkrova held its breath. Strange lights flickered between the trees. The earth trembled. Animals fled for miles in every direction. And on the morning of the 4th day, Anansi walked out of the forest. In his hand, a piece of the sun. He carried it to the center of the village and placed it into the dry, cracked earth. The ground drank it like water. Within hours, clouds gathered. Real clouds, heavy and dark and full. The kind of clouds that smell like life returning. And then, the rain came. The village of Unkrova wept. They danced. They called Anansi's name to the sky. But Anansi did not celebrate. He sat alone at the edge of the village, 8 eyes staring into the distance, and he said nothing. Because only he knew the true price of what he had done. The bargain with Sasabonsam was not just a trade of stories. Anansi had promised something far more dangerous. He had promised that Sasabonsam's story would live forever, which meant Sasabonsam himself would live forever. No god, no man, no force in creation could now unmake him. The vampire god of the forest was now permanent, woven into the fabric of every story, every nightmare, every shadow at the edge of every firelight. Anansi had saved the village, but he had made the darkness immortal. The elders say that on nights when the rain comes too suddenly, too heavily, too hungrily, that is not a blessing from the sky. That is Sasabonsam, collecting on his bargain, reminding the world that he is still here, still watching, still woven into every story ever told, including this one. You just heard his name, you just listened to his story, and now he knows yours. Sleep well. This has been Dark Whispers. If this story found you in the dark, it was meant to. Subscribe and we will bring you more secrets from the shadows of ancient Africa. The whispers are just beginning.